Hello and welcome to this episode of Cruising and Musing. I'm going to get the AC fans turned down a bit there. I am your host, Rob, which if you've watched the introduction video, you know I'm a teacher in Southwest Florida. And I've got a few things to say about things going on, and I like to think about the situations and things that are going on in the world around me. Kind of have an informed opinion. As a result of that, I find that I am what I would classify as politically homeless, if you will. I don't fit in neatly on the right, I don't fit in neatly on the left. And as a result, I find myself in an interesting situation these days in Florida, as more conservative voices are taking an interest in education, reforming school boards, things that I definitely agree need to be done and get addressed. I can't tell you the number of times I've walked into public school libraries and even charter school libraries while I've been teaching and been able to very quickly dig up books with inappropriate content. I won't tell you exactly what school I was at, but I was at a charter school in the area working for them. And I went into the library with a group of 7th grade kids. And I managed to find in that library a book that featured very graphically described Neanderthal rape scenes. Thank you, Children of the Earth series by Jean Auel. So, just as an example, I definitely on board with, we need to kind of take a look at what we're allowing into the schools and what's appropriate and what's not. It's a sad day when something, featuring Neanderthal rape in graphic detail is considered appropriate, but a copy of the Constitution is not. Why does the Constitution get a flag on it for trigger words, but Neanderthal rape was okay to be in that middle school library? It drives me insane. Now, as I said, I do tend to, not fit squarely, so what I find lately is that, it's a knee-jerk thing when I'm talking to people on the right that, oh, hey, you're a teacher. You must think the same way all these other teachers seem to that are being very loud on TikTok and other social media against this whole Don't Say Gay bill and other things that have gotten us into the spotlight, including all of the COVID and mask nonsense. And then when I'm on the left, the minute I open up my mouth, talking to people on the left, rather, not when I'm on the left, but when I talk to people on the left, they immediately accuse me of being some QAnon believing Pizzagate hoaxing crackpot. And, can't win for losing, and all I'm looking for here is, let's have a rational discussion. Why does everything have to be a our team or their team discussion? Very much there's, even the political compass, when they show you, it shows you that there's 4 quadrants, and I believe that there's a more complicated approach to it as well. So here I am trying to come up with rational things and rational solutions and cognitively coherent ideas to hold and approach to life and, be very pragmatic and realistic about situations. And understand that the slippery slope is only a fallacy, if people are acting in good faith. Lots of times, and I've seen it myself, that slippery slope is true, and you are sliding down it, and by the time that you hit the slope and you recognize it for what it is, it's too late. And, that I think is really where we fell with even why there's so many teachers and why every teacher seems to be a progressive. It's not as common here as it could be. I know I work with a lot of teachers that definitely did not support Mr. Biden's run for presidency. It's not that hard to find teachers that still have their head on straight in South Florida and West Florida, but Lee County is also one of the reddest counties in Florida, period. So when you look at us, you can't really, throw us in the same boat as something like, say, Miami-Dade or Orange County. Can't even think of which county Jacksonville is in. Duval, I think, county. There's a lot of these other big cities in Florida that are much more left-leaning and represent a greater number of teachers than even this, very large school district I live in and work with. So, like I said, I find myself kind of in a catch-22 where I don't have a political home. I, can't really call myself, at home on the right because of being non-religious and, being pro-choice. Even when I explain my view on pro-choice, they understand that, I'm not encouraging abortions, but I do think it's an option that's, better left on the table. It's one of those things that, really makes or breaks it for a lot of people on whether or not you're their political ally. And then on the left, when I'm like, hey, I'm not religious, but I also think that, we need to really re-examine our idea of, say, father's rights in marriage law and custody law, and we need to take a couple of examinations on just how far we're carrying criminal reform and, where we're drawing lines on that. And by the way, yeah, you don't need to be talking to kids that can't... Kids who, by all studies on neurological development in early childhood, cannot tell you reliably that a tall 8-ounce class will hold as much as a short 8-ounce class when they're looking at them. They'll think the bigger glass always has more. Kids who cannot yet grasp that concept, we're talking about just a matter of development. They're not old enough to firmly grasp that concept 100% of the time. And you're going to talk to them about the nature of men and women and, what can go on. And trying to let you in, buddy. Come on now. Work with me here. I don't fit into that. You don't need to do that. My own feeling is that, as a teacher, how to put this? The openness being a teacher is a one-way street for the student. The students have to feel comfortable to be open with you about who they are and what's going on with them. You need that level of trust because you are, especially these days, sometimes taking on the role of a parent. It's in loco parentis. Thank you. What's his name? Carlito's Way, Scent of a Woman. What is his name? Al Pacino. Thank you, Al Pacino, for that one. The idea of in loco parentis, that, when the kid is at the school figures there, the faculty are in parental custody, essentially, of the child, and that is where they derive the authority to do things like expel the child, suspend the child, discipline the child. It used to be spank the child. It's also where we all draw the requirement for schools to have to provide food for all the children. And, if somebody leaves their child on the school doorstep, the school brings that child in and shelters and protects that child until someone comes forth to claim that child, whether it's the authorities, child services, or their parent at the end of the day. So that's, getting back around to it, there's that very long tradition of, the teachers, faculty, staff, they need to be there to help those kids go through it, because especially older kids, I'm not even going to say that. Younger kids can be going through stuff at home that they don't know how to express fully. I know when I was a kid and my parents got divorced, I was going into second grade, first grade maybe. They were on and off again a lot, so it's hard to tell exactly when they broke up, looking back on it. But I know that I had talks with teachers about, why wasn't my homework done? Oh, well, I was with my dad this weekend and I didn't bring my schoolwork because I wanted to be with Dad. And they'd be understanding about that and be like, okay, well, have it in by Wednesday. And call Mom and let Mom know that I had some extra homework to get done. What have you. There's just a certain level of openness, of compromise, of facilitation, if you will, of your individual student that you have to do. And you have to be the sort of person where the kid can be open with you in order to do that. It's, part of what makes a good teacher from an okay teacher. On the flip side, as far as I'm concerned, the children never need to know more than you're a vampire that sleeps in a coffin in a storage closet at the school. They don't need to know about your business, whether you are left, right on the political spectrum, whether or not you believe in evolution. That's one of the things my teacher trainers told me, on teaching science, is that you teach the science, you never teach your opinion. And at the end of the day, the students should not be able to tell what your actual opinion is on the matter. They should only know the factual information you taught them about the science. And that's kind of the way that we take it with teaching kids government class too. The kids should never be able to tell what the teachers think unless they've found that teacher outside of school at a political rally somewhere. Inside of school, my opinions as a person do not exist. We are worried only about the child, their development as a person, and their acquisition of knowledge. And whatever I am that is beyond what they can see should be completely off the table for them to know more. They don't need to know whether I'm married, whether I'm single, whether I'm dating, whether I had a great weekend, a bad weekend. When the kid walks through the door, or in my case, picks up a phone and talks to me, all they really need to know is that I am giving them my attention and I'm doing my job that I need to for them. They don't need to know anything else. So when I look at these teachers on TikTok and they're talking about developing a relationship with their children, it's no. The relationship you're developing with that child is instructor to pupil, mentor to mentee. There's Obi-Wan didn't offload all his bullshit onto Luke. He taught Luke what he could in the short amount of time he had, and that was that. And in a couple cases, as it becomes apparent later, he lied to him when he needed to be lied to as well. And that's kind of the approach we have to have with kids is, sometimes you need to say, that is a wonderful question, and you want to ask your parent about that. That's a great question. That's something you should go home and talk with your parents about. There's nothing wrong with saying that to a child who has asked you a question that you really should not be answering, given how old they are. Now, me as a biology teacher, I have been asked some of the least comfortable questions any teacher can be asked, and unfortunately, it is my job as a biology teacher to spit them answers. I have been in the situation of having a very religious child in the biology course that was an advanced student. It was a couple years ahead of going through any bit of puberty themselves because they had, simply advanced through their courses too fast and were in a high school class at an age where they should have been walking into 6th grade. And I give very frank, very honest answers. That's my job. We're in biology class. We're talking about biology. Human anatomy is part of biology. What is not part of biology is me discussing what people choose to do with their organs. I can explain to you exactly how those female organs work and what happens and the estrogen levels and the protoestrogen and how pregnancy works and develops and everything from, zygote and placenta all the way down the train to the human infant and the formations. But what we are not going to discuss is what is going on the night before all of this occurs. And we're not going to implicate, any judgment on it thereof. And to that end, being the biology teacher, I've also had a number of kids who seem to enjoy, coming over and trying to make me uncomfortable, asking those questions. And it's like, you can't. When I was in the classroom for the year I was in a classroom, I had a drawer in my desk and I kept a box of tampons and a box of pads in there because shit happens. It's part of what you're dealing with. And it is what it was. We had a very bland conversation one day that if, anyone ever needed anything, it was down there after there was an incident where there was a particular mess and a very embarrassing time for a young lady. I saw that it was going to possibly be a problem again in the future. I provided what they needed, and we didn't talk about it past what was necessary. It's just is what it is. And again, sometimes as a teacher, you're filling in that role as a parent, especially working with middle school students. They are hormonal, crazy nut jobs. There is no such thing as a sane middle school student. They're all absolutely insane with their hormones bouncing around. They're trying to figure out who they are. Why do I feel scared all of a sudden? Why do I feel angry all of a sudden? Oh my God, being a teenage boy, I can remember the days where it was like, please don't call on me to go up to the front board because something has popped up to say hello and I don't understand why and I don't know how to make it go away. It's it is what it is. And yeah, teachers have to deal with all of this embarrassing shit. But as I keep talking about high school and middle school, there's many things that you don't have to deal with on the elementary level, especially K through 3, the 5 to 8 range that the Don't Say Gay bill covers. And be thankful that you don't have to deal with it. Don't try to age those children faster than they're already being aged. Don't rob their childhood from them because you have some personal issues you need to talk to a therapist or have some grown adult friends you can talk with that stuff about. Talk to the teachers in the teachers lounge on your break about, the wonderful time that you and your cohabitant had the other day or what's going on. Be a stranger to the kids, but be the helpful stranger they can count on to help them when they are in their hour of need. I think that sums it up pretty well in the shortest form. So definitely, I am a supporter of that Don't Say Gay bill. I don't think it goes anywhere near far enough. And I don't say that in the sense that the bill ever says don't say gay. I'm simply referring to it colloquially as that because honestly I can't remember the number of the bill offhand. And I also want to point out that it does not go far enough. The wording of the bill still leaves it very legal for teachers to have small group or individual one-on-one conversations with students about those topics, no matter how inappropriate it might be. So it's not as protective as you might think or as limited as you might think. And if you're doing your job in a good, honest effort and you've been asked an awkward question, by a kid, and you've given them a partial answer and told them they have to talk to their parents for anything more, I don't think you got to worry about parents coming after you, because parents deal with those kids too. Especially, if you can say, look, the kid asked me straight up, and I felt they were of an age where I could answer that question, singularly and not discuss it any further, then continue on. I really don't think if you're acting in good faith, you've got anything to worry about if you're a teacher. Because none of these bills that are being passed are, meant to target anyone acting in good faith. They're meant to target teachers that are, telling kids not to talk to their parents about things and other stuff that just shouldn't be being said. I understand that the child places, their trust in you. I had a child come to me once and tell me that her brother was beating her almost daily and that she didn't want to go home because she was afraid he was going to attack her again. And then her parents weren't doing anything because the brother had some emotional needs and they were just failing to protect her now that he had gotten older and bigger and could do this. And I could see the bruises on her. She confided in me. I still made that call to child services. It is what it is. As teachers, we are, we're required reporters. And sometimes that means that, you break the child's trust and you tell that parent what that child told you in secret because it's acted in the best interest of the student. And that phrase, I absolutely hate that phrase, best interest of the student. There's been no set of words used to manipulate and gaslight teachers as a whole more than the best interest of the student. But at the same time, that does kind of need to be the guiding light of the actions we take as teachers. So this is kind of devolved past being, politically homeless, and I've taken a little bit more firm of a stance than what I was planning on actually talking about. But I don't think we've gone too far off topic, because some of the things I've expressed, I'm sure there's got to be a parent, if anyone listens to this, not along and agreeing with me. I'm a teacher saying that, I as a teacher understand my place. And, other parents being like, it's kind of weird that a male teacher would keep, feminine hygiene products in his desk for his female students. But then there's also got to be the parent whose, child, left the house that day unprepared because they don't understand to carry it with them constantly, and it's not provided for free in the school bathrooms, and they're not always going to be able to get to the nurse. So it is what it is. And then I'm sure I've got a number of teachers ready to hunt me down and strangle me and try to get me fired for taking the side of, our governor on this one, and saying that that bill was well-intentioned and well-meaning, and it's not an attack on trans people. It's not an attack on anyone. What it is a line of protection, a line in the sand saying these children are too young to be talked to about this subject. Do not do it unless absolutely necessary. It does not invalidate you in any way. It does not invalidate me if I'm the teacher of a second grade classroom to not tell them about how much I love boobs or the female form. It does not invalidate you as a second grade teacher if you happen to be homosexual to not discuss with them the relationship you have with the same sex. It does not invalidate you if you are a transgender teacher to, not engage with the students about you being the transgender. Just whatever you are presenting yourself as, you are miss that, and roll with there. There's no need for getting complicated pronouns or what have you out. We have a binary for a reason. It's a very simple system. Makes it very much easier to deal with linguistically. And let the kids call you Mr. or Miss until they get old enough to understand, there's a third out there, and then you can start introducing the idea of calling a single person they and them, and, start talking about, third person, non-possessive, poise and whatnot that you have to engage in when talking about such things. It's not a hard concept of, keep your lessons and keep your interactions age appropriate with the children. And that goes, anyone who works with kids is going to know that, there might be some 8-year-old where mom and dad need to sit them down and talk about the birds and the bees, because they're starting to figure that out on their own from a little bit too much unattended TV time. Hopefully that's why they're figuring it out. God help me, some of the horror stories I heard about in college from professors about how those kids found out about the birds and the bees when they were too young to be knowing about it. But at the same time, there's also I have met 9th graders that were not yet ready to have that conversation or had not had that conversation with their parents and were not yet of a maturity level where they were really, appropriate to have such topics of conversation come up beyond a nod to the existence thereof. It is what it is. You kind of have to teach the greatest common denominator when you're in your classroom, and that's why you don't have, you have differentiated instruction for a reason. And if the differentiated instruction is telling you that, hey, most of these kids aren't ready to discuss this topic yet, we're not going to reach that topic. And so why would you object to the idea on a moral stand-in that, hey, most of these kids aren't mature enough yet to be discussing these alternative lifestyles, these other ways of being past what they've seen in their everyday life, to roll with it? Not to mention, especially now in the age of the internet, as soon as they are old enough, they're probably going to figure that out on their own. It's not like we were 20 years ago where talking about your insecurities is absolutely taboo. I really would recommend that any parent, start making it okay to start talking about that with your teenager. You do not want your teenager thinking they might be anything, straight, gay, bi, trans, etc., and leaving it up to somebody on an internet chat room engaging in those conversations. There's a word for those kinds of people. We call them predators. So make sure that you're being open with your kids and that your kids feel they can approach you with stuff. But at the same time, as teachers, if a kid comes up to you and is like, "Hi, I'm gay," there's not much you can do about that. All you can say is, "Hi, gay, I'm Rob." And I literally quote myself there to the extent of I'm not going to drop my last name in the middle of a podcast here. And I have literally had a student walk up that was so socially awkward that instead of introducing themselves, tell me their name or tell me anything else about them, they said, literally, they walked up to me in a room full of people and said, "You're the science teacher. Hi, I'm gay." To which I had to reply, I couldn't help myself. I threw the dad joke in there despite not being a dad. "Hi, gay. I'm Mr. So-and-so." And they looked at me, and I looked at them, and I said, "I'd really like to know your name. I think that's more important for me to know, don't you?" And to me it is. I don't care, what color, creed,